I was standing in Loretta's hallway holding her broken porch railing in one hand when I heard my wife tell her mother she couldn't keep doing this much longer. The wood was still warm from the afternoon sun. I had driven 40 minutes to fix something Loretta mentioned 3 weeks ago at Sunday dinner, the kind of small repair her late husband Vernon would have handled in 10 minutes. Now I was frozen 3 feet from her kitchen door, watching my own hand grip splintered wood while my wife's voice came through the crack in a tone I had never heard her use with anyone. Not anger. Exhaustion that had weight to it. My name is Nathaniel Odom. I own 4 dental practices across the county, and my face is on enough bus benches that strangers wave at me in grocery stores. Every morning I wake up in a house my grandfather would have been arrested for entering through the front door. My wife Corliss is a magistrate judge. Our daughter Imani is 8 years old and still believes I know the answer to every question she asks. Until that moment in Loretta's hallway, I thought the hardest part of my life was behind me. I thought wrong. The railing had split clean through where the posts met the banister. One good lean, and someone would go straight through onto the azaleas below. I had brought my tools, my work gloves, the pre-cut lumber I measured twice in my garage the night before. I knocked 3 times like I always did. No answer. Loretta's Buick was in the driveway. The front door was unlocked the way it always was, even though Corliss had bought her a deadbolt 2 Christmases ago that she refused to install because Vernon never locked the door in 41 years, and she wasn't about to start acting scared now. So I let myself in to get started. That's what family does. Mama, I'm tired. Corliss's voice carried that particular weight she got when she was holding something in until she physically couldn't anymore. I don't know how much longer I can pretend everything's fine. I should have announced myself, cleared my throat, dropped the railing, something. Instead, I stood there and listened to my wife unravel. Baby, I know it's hard. Loretta's voice was softer than I'd ever heard it. But you said yourself he's been good to you. He's a good man. Being good isn't the same as being what I need. The railing creaked in my hand. I loosened my grip before the wood could give me away. What are you saying? Loretta asked. You want to leave him? The silence that followed was longer than any silence has a right to be. I counted my own heartbeats. Got to 11 before Corliss finally spoke again. I don't know what I want anymore. That's the problem. I set the railing down so carefully it didn't make a sound. My hands were shaking. My hands never shake. I perform surgical extractions on patients who are awake and watching. I rebuilt a woman's smile after her ex-husband put her through a windshield. Steady hands are the only reason I have a career. But standing in my mother-in-law's hallway, I couldn't keep my fingers from trembling. Corliss had been different lately. Quieter. She stayed at the courthouse later than usual. When I asked about her day, she gave me the highlights version, the public summary, not the detailed breakdown she used to give me while we split a bottle of wine on the back deck. Last week I reached for her in bed, and she let me hold her, but her body didn't soften into mine the way it used to. She was present, but not there. I told myself it was work stress, a hard docket, the election coming up. I told myself a lot of things that turned out to be me lying to myself. When did it start? Loretta asked. I don't know. That's what makes it worse. There wasn't a moment. It was 1,000 small moments that added up to me waking up one day and realizing I didn't recognize my own life anymore. I heard liquid pouring. Tea, probably. Loretta kept a pitcher of sweet tea in her refrigerator year-round. The ice cracked as it hit the glass. Does he know? Loretta asked. How could he? I barely know myself. I could have walked out then. Could have gone back to my truck, driven around the block, come back in 20 minutes making noise and calling out so they'd hear me coming. Could have fixed the railing and gone home and pretended I never heard anything. That would have been the smart thing. Instead, I moved closer to the door. You remember when Vernon got sick? Loretta's voice had changed. Steadier now. The voice she used when she was about to say something she'd been thinking about for a while. Those last 6 months before he passed. Of course. I used to sit in that hospital room and watch him sleep, and I'd think about all the things I never told him. All the conversations we never had, because I thought we had more time. And then one day we didn't. The ice rattled in her glass. I'm not saying you should blow up your life, baby. I'm saying you need to tell that man the truth before the distance between you gets so wide can't nobody cross it anymore. What if the truth makes everything worse? And what if the lie kills everything that's left? I heard Corliss crying then. Not the loud kind. The quiet kind that's somehow worse because you can hear the person trying not to. My wife was crying in her mother's kitchen about our marriage, and I was eavesdropping in the hallway instead of being someone she could cry to. What did that make me? I backed away from the door as quietly as I'd approached, picked up the railing, walked back through the front door, and pulled it shut hard enough that they'd hear it from the kitchen. Loretta? I called out. It's Nathaniel. I'm here about the porch. 30 seconds of silence. Then footsteps. The kitchen door swung open and Corliss appeared, her face composed, but her eyes still red at the edges. She had her purse over her shoulder. Hey. She looked genuinely surprised to see me. I didn't know you were coming by. Told Loretta I'd fix the railing. You okay? Fine. Just having tea with Mama. Her smile was the one she used in court. Professional. Convincing. Empty. I need to get back to the office anyway. She kissed me on the cheek. Her lips were cold. I watched her walk to her car, watched her pull out of the driveway without looking back. Then I turned to find Loretta standing in the doorway watching me with an expression I couldn't read. That railing's been bothering me for weeks, she said. Thank you for coming. That's what family does. She held my eyes for a long moment. Yes, it is. I spent 2 hours replacing that railing. Loretta brought me lemonade and asked about Imani and told me about her book club's argument over their latest selection. We talked about everything except what I'd heard. By the time I finished, the sun was starting to drop and the porch was solid enough to hold 3 of me. Loretta tested it with her weight, nodding approval. Vernon would have done it faster, she said. But he wouldn't have done it better. I had a good teacher. She looked at me then with something close to sadness. You're a good man, Nathaniel. Don't forget that. I wanted to ask her what she meant. Wanted to ask if she knew I'd heard. Wanted to ask what I was supposed to do with the knowledge that my wife was unhappy enough to cry about it to someone else, but not to me. Instead, I packed up my tools and drove home. Corliss got home around 8. Imani was already asleep. I was in the kitchen pretending to read contract revisions for the new practice location. She dropped her bag on the counter and opened the refrigerator. How was Mama's railing? Fixed. She say anything interesting? I looked up from the contract I hadn't actually been reading. Like what? Corliss pulled out the container of pasta from last night. I don't know. She's been on me about taking a vacation. Says we look tired. Are we tired? She stopped with the container halfway to the microwave. Turned to look at me with an expression I couldn't quite identify. Yeah, she said quietly. I think we are. She heated up her pasta. Ate it standing at the counter. Asked if I'd checked Imani's homework folder. Mentioned that the dishwasher was making a noise again. All the ordinary machinery of a marriage that looked fine from the outside. I watched her and wondered when we'd become people who talked about dishwashers instead of the truth. That night in bed, I lay awake listening to her breathe. She was on her side facing away from me. I could reach out and touch her shoulder. Could say her name. Could tell her what I heard and ask her what it meant. But I didn't, because part of me already knew what it meant. And part of me wasn't ready to hear her say it out loud yet. The next 3 weeks were the longest of my life. I started paying attention to things I'd stopped noticing. The way Corliss's smile never quite reached her eyes anymore. How she held her coffee cup with both hands in the morning, staring at nothing. The fact that she hadn't initiated a conversation about anything that mattered in months. We were roommates, competent co-parents, 2 people running a household with impressive efficiency and 0 intimacy. I told myself I was waiting for the right moment to bring it up. The truth was I was terrified. My parents stayed married for 43 years, and I'm still not sure they liked each other. They had an arrangement that looked like love from a distance. I swore I'd never do that. Swore I'd build something different with Corliss. Now I wasn't sure what we'd built, or if it was still standing. Imani noticed before I said anything. We were at the breakfast table on a Saturday. Corliss was at a conference in Charlotte. I was making pancakes the way Imani liked them, with chocolate chips arranged into a smiley face. "Daddy, are you and Mommy fighting?" I flipped a pancake to buy myself 3 seconds. "No, baby. Why would you think that? You're being too nice to each other." I set the spatula down, turned to look at my daughter, who was 8 years old and apparently wiser than both her parents combined. "What do you mean?" "Like when Emma's parents got divorced. Before it happened, they were super polite all the time. Please and thank you and no problem. Emma said it was scarier than when they used to yell." I sat down across from her. "Mommy and I aren't getting divorced. But something's wrong." I couldn't lie to her. Imani had inherited her mother's ability to detect dishonesty from across a room. "Sometimes grown-ups go through hard patches," I said carefully. "It doesn't mean anything's broken. It just means we have to work a little harder to fix it." "Did you break it, or did Mommy?" "That's not how it works, baby." "Then how does it work?" I didn't have an answer that would make sense to an 8-year-old. I barely had one that made sense to me. That afternoon, I called my friend Royce. We'd known each other since undergrad. He was the closest thing I had to someone I could talk to about things that actually mattered. We met at the driving range. Royce was on his second bucket of balls before I said anything real. "I think my marriage might be ending." He hit a clean 7-iron about 160 yards. "What makes you say that?" I told him about the conversation I'd overheard, about the distance between us, about feeling married to someone who didn't want to be married to me anymore, but hadn't figured out how to say it yet. Royce teed up another ball. "You ask her about it?" "No." "Why not?" "Because what if I'm right?" He looked at me then. "And what if you're wrong? What if she's waiting for you to ask?" I drove home thinking about that, about all the conversations Corliss and I weren't having, about the possibility that we were both waiting for the other person to go first. When I got home, she was in the kitchen with Imani making cookies. Our daughter's hands were covered in dough. Corliss was laughing at something Imani said. For a moment, she looked the way she used to look, unguarded, present. Then she saw me, and the guard came back up. "How was the range?" "Good. Royce sends his love." Imani held up dough-covered hands. "We're making snickerdoodles." "I can see that." I stood there watching them work, watching my wife help our daughter measure cinnamon, watching the easy way they moved around each other. Mother and daughter, the most natural thing in the world. And I realized what I was actually afraid of. I wasn't afraid Corliss would leave. I was afraid she'd stay for Imani and resent me for the rest of our lives. Afraid we'd become my parents. Two people in the same house building separate lives and calling it a marriage. That night after Imani was asleep, I found Corliss on the back deck with a glass of wine. She was wrapped in the blanket her grandmother made, staring out at nothing. I sat down next to her without asking, "Can we talk?" She didn't look at me. "About what?" "About the fact that you're not happy." Her whole body went still. "What makes you think I'm not happy?" "Corliss, please don't do that." "Do what?" "Pretend. We're too good at pretending. That's the whole problem." She set her wine glass down on the deck railing. When she finally looked at me, her eyes were wet. "When did you figure it out?" 3 weeks ago, at your mother's house." Understanding crossed her face. "You heard us." "I heard enough." She pulled the blanket tighter around herself. "I didn't know how to tell you. Every time I tried to find the words, they felt too big, too final. Tell me now." She was quiet for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "I don't know when it happened, but somewhere along the way, we stopped being us. We became this really efficient team that runs a household and raises a daughter and looks great on paper. And I love you. I do. But I don't know if I'm in love with you anymore. And I don't know if you're in love with me or just in love with the idea of us." The words hit exactly as hard as I knew they would. Is there someone else? No. She said it fast enough that I believed her. There's just nothing. And somehow that's worse. If there was someone else, at least there'd be a reason. A villain. Something to point at and say that's what broke us. But there's just all this distance that built up so slowly I didn't notice until I could barely see you anymore. I wanted to argue, wanted to defend myself, wanted to list all the ways I'd been a good husband. But Loretta's voice was in my head. Being good isn't the same as being what I need. What do you need? I asked. I don't know. That's what I've been trying to figure out. Then let's figure it out together. She looked at me with something close to surprise. You still want to? Corliss, I didn't build a life with you so I could walk away the first time it got hard. I built a life with you because I can't imagine one without you in it. But if we're going to do this, we have to actually do it. No more pretending everything's fine. No more being polite strangers who share a mortgage. I don't know if I know how to do that anymore. Then we'll learn. She started crying then. Real crying. The kind she'd been holding back for months. I pulled her into me, and she let me. Her body finally softened the way it used to. I'm scared, she whispered into my shoulder. What if we try and it still doesn't work? Then at least we'll know we tried. But what if we don't try and spend the rest of our lives wondering what would have happened if we had? We sat there on the deck until her wine went warm and the night got cold. We didn't solve anything, didn't fix anything, but we started talking in a way we hadn't talked in longer than I wanted to admit. That was 4 months ago. We started therapy the following week. Couples counseling with a woman named Dr. Idella Tate, who didn't let either of us hide behind polite deflection. She made us say the hard things out loud, made us sit in the discomfort of our own honesty. It was brutal. We fought more in those first few weeks than we had in our entire marriage. Real fights. Fights where we said things that hurt. But they were real things. True things. Things that needed to be said. Slowly, something started to shift. Corliss told me she felt invisible. Told me I was so focused on building the practices and being successful that I stopped seeing her as a person and started seeing her as a role she played. The wife. The judge, the mother, but not Corliss. And she was right. I told her I felt the same way, that she looked at me and saw the provider, the husband, the father, but she hadn't asked me about my own fears or doubts or dreams in years. Hadn't asked what kept me awake at night or what I wanted beyond what I already had. We'd both been performing our roles instead of being ourselves. Dr. Tate asked us when we last went on a date that wasn't a charity function or a dinner with people we needed to impress. We couldn't remember. She asked us when we last had a conversation about something other than Imani's schedule or house maintenance or work obligations. We couldn't answer. She asked us what we actually liked about each other right now, in this present moment, not who we used to be or who we hoped we'd become. That one was harder, but we found answers. I liked the way Corliss still corrected my grammar when I got lazy with my words. Liked that she kept every terrible drawing Imani ever made. Liked that she cried at commercials, but never at movies because she said movies were trying to manipulate her, but commercials were being honest about it. She liked that I called my mother every Sunday, even though the conversations were mostly silence. Liked that I couldn't walk past a dog without stopping to pet it. Liked that I still got nervous before big presentations, even though I'd given hundreds of them. Small things. Specific things. The things that make a person themselves. We started dating again. Actual dates. We went to a terrible movie and made fun of it over dinner after. Went to the farmer's market on Saturday mornings without Imani. Started talking about things that had nothing to do with our shared responsibilities. It wasn't perfect. Some days were still hard. Some days we fell back into old patterns. But we kept showing up. Last month, Loretta asked us to dinner. Sunday meal at her house the way she used to do when Vernon was alive. Just the 4 of us. After we ate, Imani convinced her grandmother to show her the old photo albums. That left me and Corliss doing dishes together in the kitchen where I'd heard her say she didn't know if she could keep pretending. You ever think about that day? I asked, when I showed up to fix the railing? All the time. You know I heard you. The whole conversation. She stopped washing the plate in her hand. I figured. You had this look on your face when I came out. I'd never seen you look at me that way before. What way? Like you were afraid of me. I dried the plate she handed me. I was terrified you were going to leave, and I didn't know how to stop it. I was terrified you'd ask me to stay, and I wouldn't want to. And now? I asked. She looked at me with clear eyes. Now I'm choosing to stay, and that's different. We finished the dishes in comfortable silence. Through the doorway, we could hear Imani asking Loretta about a picture from some family reunion. Loretta's laughter carried into the kitchen. Before we left, Loretta pulled me aside while Corliss was getting Imani's jacket. That railing's still holding up good, she said. Built to last. Some things are. She squeezed my hand. Vernon used to say the best marriages aren't the ones that never break. They're the ones where both people pick up the pieces together instead of walking away from the mess. I looked at Corliss helping Imani with her zipper. Looked at my wife, who I almost lost because we both forgot we had to keep choosing each other. He was a smart man. He had his moments. On the drive home, Imani fell asleep in the back seat. Corliss reached across the console and took my hand. Not the polite hand-holding of people performing a marriage. The real kind. The kind that says I'm here and I want to be. I thought about all the things I almost lost because I was too afraid to ask the hard questions. About how close we came to becoming two people who stayed together for all the wrong reasons. About how love isn't something you feel once and keep forever. It's something you choose and build and rebuild every single day. Thank you, Corliss said quietly. For what? For not letting me disappear. I squeezed her hand. We saved each other. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said something that I carry with me now. You know what the scariest part was? It wasn't falling out of love. It was realizing I'd stopped trying to stay in it. Like I thought the love we built in the beginning would just run on its own forever without either of us adding anything to it. Like we could coast on who we used to be instead of choosing who we are now. I pulled into our driveway, turned off the engine, looked at this woman I married 11 years ago who was somehow both exactly the same and completely different from the person I thought I knew. So we keep choosing, I said. Yeah. She smiled at me. The real kind. We keep choosing. I carried Imani inside while Corliss unlocked the door. Our daughter didn't wake up when I put her to bed or when Corliss kissed her forehead. We stood in her doorway for a moment watching her sleep. This whole person we made who somehow knew we were struggling before we admitted it to ourselves. Later, in our own bed, Corliss curled into me the way she used to. The way she'd started doing again. I love you, she whispered. Not because I'm supposed to. Because I choose to. I love you too. And I meant it in a way I hadn't meant it in a long time. Not the automatic I love you of habit. The conscious, deliberate, chosen kind. The kind that knows love isn't something that just happens to you. It's something you build every single day with someone who's willing to build it back. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Because the hardest things are usually the ones most worth keeping.